Well, hello there, this is Matthew Miller, the Miller Kiwi. How are we doing? Yes, people, I do apologise for not having a face cam because I couldn't find it. I actually do have it, but I just couldn't find it, so I'm just going to have to just do it without one. So how you all doing? And yes, why I'm starting with a Google Map? Good reasons why, because around here, and that's when I actually did get my speeding ticket, and yes, around this road, and I was driving at the old speed limit, and see, it was somewhere around here. That's when I sort of got pulled over here, and oh, you got clicked on that. Yeah, and that's where I actually got pulled. And let's turn around here, and let's go forth down there. And yes, there's the speed sign over there. Yeah, it's 70 kilometers an hour, and that's the speed limit that was once before. Yeah, and it was lowered down by 20 k's from 70 down to 50, and yeah, the police car was around there before, and that's where I got pulled over right there. And I was doing 70, I was going at the old speed limit though, and yeah, and when I actually did get pulled over, and there was actually a police officer who was saying to me, we do end up delivering those to people's mailboxes for those on this road. And why is that? And this is actually to prove the police officer's statement and to prove his statement and why people are getting those delivered to their mailboxes. And we know that when the speed limit was lowered, the roads still remain the same. The sign hadn't changed, and we're going to be getting to that soon enough. And yeah, driving safely will see many drivers unaware that traveling at the speed limit can still be driving unsafely. And yes, that's quite true. The speed limit is the legal maximum that you can travel on any road in perfect condition. However, the road conditions are very rare. As a safe driver, you should have to look out for changes in traffic, road and weather conditions, and reduce the speed accordingly. And that's probably good advice to do so, because man, yeah, weather conditions you might need to reduce to include high volumes of traffic on the road, pedestrians, joggers, and cyclists. Yeah, because when there's a lot of traffic, it's actually not as comfortable to be driving fast, because man, you can always note on other people's behaviour. And yeah, holiday times when there's a lot of visitors on the road and parked cars, yeah, and usually that is on the street. And they say, oh, let's make our speed safer. A new advertiser can reinforce the importance of safe speeds. Yeah, and this was the ad that I actually gonna be showing you that soon enough. But they just want to get people to drive at those slower speeds, or just in the name safety, but not change the road design. And they say, and they would be reducing it down, say it will make them safer. But the one thing that I ain't going to go to that now. I'm going to be looking at this ad here and just making sure things going. Oh, good.
Alright, what should we? Oi, Clipboard.
Hello?
What are you doing?
Reviewing the speed limit!
The speed limit.
The what?
Speed limit!
Why?
It's just too fast for roads like this one! You know, stuff's
Just too fast.
changed. New schools, new builds, people moving in.
Yeah, people moving in, new schools and that though.
Well, we're looking at the speed limits to make sure they're
And
right for the
people are
roads,
sorry.
to keep us all safe.
Yeah, to keep you safe, but there's the one thing you hadn't looked at is probably which I'll be getting to that soon enough.
Did you like that?
Hey!
Wait,
Ah!
so are you changing all the speed limits?
Yes. No. Just the rubbish ones.
Oh god.
Just the shit ones.
Alright, hurry up then.
Okay.
Bye.
And yeah. Well, this is more like a road though, and as far as we're doing. Well, if it is actually a road, then people should be able to drive fast there. We know that footpath is actually probably too close, and it's it's quite narrow. So, and this is all comes to psychology of drivers, and this just shows the type of drivers in there, and behaviors of drivers on the road types and that, and most of people, if you want to read this, I'll have a link down there below as well, and there's distracted drivers, the rush driver, the emotional driver, the new drivers, the fatigue drivers, the boys serotonin while driving. Yeah, well, this is what I gotta look at now. So, people, if you want to read for it, I have a link down there below. And now I'm going with TerraPine's video, and I'm only gonna be watching some of it.
Drivers are being forced to go slow in the Netherlands in a bid to reduce emissions.
Yes. Anyway, now to Auckland.
If you're expecting to drive around Auckland tomorrow, you'll want to watch our next story if you don't want to get a speeding ticket. Because as Emma Cropper reports, speed limits are being lowered on hundreds of roads across the region.
The super city that come midnight is slowing right down.
We're asking Kiwis to actually slow down a bit, take a bit longer on their journey for the benefit of the entire community.
And as of tomorrow, they're not asking. It will be a legal requirement. The speed limits on 600 Auckland roads and inner city streets will officially be lowered. From a bird's eye view, almost all of the CBD will be a blanket 30k speed zone. Some streets brought to a crawl at just 10 kilometres an hour. While on the outskirts of the city, hundreds of rural...
Oh yeah, if it's not applying to streets from like 30 as well, that's fine for 30. Yeah, that's just for the streets. That's okay, but man, it's gonna be applying. This is gonna be applying to roads.
roads that are normally 100 will be lowered to either 80 and in some places 60.
Wow. 60 to 80. That means everything that gets delivered will be more expensive. Courier prices will go up, taxi prices will go up, grocery prices will go up. Everything that gets delivered will cost more. And this is happening when we really need businesses to survive. Which again raises the obvious question, do they really want to, are they really trying to sink our economy?
Kilometres an hour. And here's the sobering reality of how deadly speed is.
Speed does not cause all road crashes. It's not the major cause.
Yeah, that's true if it doesn't hear what. Because there's other factors that cause death, yeah, like driving while drunk. Yeah, that's one of it. And also driving while tired, that's also another. And then you know why drinking and driving is dangerous, because when you do get drunk, you also get dizzy and you actually lose judgment as well, so that's what probably makes it dangerous. So it does is wearing masks, because when you're breathing in your own CO2 and you get CO2 poisoning, that also makes you dizzy. So driving while dizzy is also dangerous.
Also factor in all road crashes, but it will dictate the outcome in every crash.
567 people were seriously injured on Auckland roads last year, and 40 people died. The hope is to bring that number down to 0.
Absolute BS. It has nothing to do with safety. It is all about forcing the global climate agenda on New Zealanders, and of course getting tax revenue via speeding tickets.
Will this save lives?
This will save lives.
Auckland Transport says the average speed around the city is 19 kilometres an hour. So come tomorrow, is it really going to make a difference how long it takes you to get from A to B? We drove down Queen Street around the block and ended up at the Sky Tower at the same time of the day, but at both speeds. On the left is 50 kilometres an hour, on the right is 30. It did take 2 minutes longer on the second lap, but that was only because I really got stuck in traffic. Other than that, on both laps, I barely reached 30 kilometres an hour, which is the reality of Auckland City. It is very slow to travel around as it is.
Yeah, so how exactly is reducing the speed limit going to make it any safer?
Yeah, that's exactly true. Well, it's going to make it safer, because if you don't change the road design, yeah, then you're going to lower it, but not change the road design. Do you expect people to drive slower? Which I'll be getting to that soon enough.
Well, it isn't, is it? It's all BS.
Yes.
And that's a more user-friendly and safe city the council wants.
Encouraging more people to walk and cycle.
Encouraging people to walk and cycle.
And yes, people, I am for walkability and choice of transport as well. Yes, I am for it. But man, no one should be forced to do all those things if they don't want to. Yeah, people can own a car if they choose, and I am for choices. That's the true freedom, is having choice of transportation rather than being so car dependent. Because owning a car is expensive, because you have to like give it a ride of fitness, get it serviced or something, so your car can remain on the road. And now proposed speed limit changes, and
Auckland Transport is proposing to set new permanent speed limits on approximately 800 roads around Auckland. The proposed changes are around selected schools, on some residential roads in Manurewa, on roads in Otara Town Centre, on some roads in Franklin, including many that have a high risk of death or serious injuries occurring, and some additional roads, mostly in Freeman's Bay and Ponsonby, where members of the community have expressed safety concerns and requested the speed limits to be reviewed. To find out which roads we propose changing the speed limits of and to provide feedback, please go to at.govt.nz/have-your-say.
yeah, yeah, and backlash against plans to lower speed limit across New Zealand highways. And you probably know why. If you really want to know which is the right speed for people, I don't know why people are not using the 85th percentile, because you would have radar guns, radars to record their speed, what people would be driving at, and then they could calculate it, which would be the best speed limit for people to be, for this given road. So, and they say to cut speed limit and aim to keep safe in their school. It all comes down to road design, and before I get to that, man, now we look at the number of road deaths each year. And currently, last year in New Zealand, we had about 318. Compared to 2019, it was 352, and also the year before was 378, and also the year before also the same. But we know that the road deaths used to be pretty high, probably, unless more than 20 years ago, like in 1990, 730. That's quite a lot. In 1987, 795. That is quite a lot. Means road deaths has been declining quite a lot. And of course, back in the early 1970s, like in 1983, it had reached its peak of 843, which is that is a lot. And there weren't as many. That's when New Zealand's population was below 3 million. Yeah. So with the population at 5 million, see, yeah, well, that's actually quite awesome around having 380, and it's good to see number of road deaths is reducing. It's probably because the car's been made safer and that though, and improved road designs and that though, and that is good to see. Could it actually even go lower than 300, which it has before gone lower than that, was 2014 293, and what happened? I think one before, that's 2011 284, which that is insanely awesome to have it at that 284, which you probably never seen that before. Probably like, let's go back. Wow, like probably even since the early 50s. That is like having that be that, like, it was pretty awesome, man. And now let's go to the map, and you know why this, and you know that the road's quite wide, and you know you got those sides just because people can park here and that, or you can know the footpath that is insanely narrow. Yeah, it's pretty narrow, that footpath, and it is really insanely narrow. And the road is wide, and you know why people do drive quite quickly, because with wider roads, man, that's what it actually called the and that road came out like the and this is from Strongtown, forgiving the sign versus the forgiveness of low speeds, and forgiving the sign in action, forgiving for drivers, but not so forgiving for everyone else. Yeah, so true, because man, well, not always forgiving for drivers, especially when they lower speed limits and when they get speeding tickets, because they're trying to like lower the speed limit but not change the road design. And I ain't gonna, and there's forgiving the sign and the forgiveness of slow speed. And let's go to the first one, and the forgiving the sign one is increase the safety at high speed, wide travel lanes, broad smooth curves, clear sign for fixed objects, and wide shoulders, and feel comfortable to drive fast. These are highway standards, and we know that is the highway, and then we know that the road is straight. And you know what happens on straight when you see a long stretch road and it's so straight? It actually makes the driver want to drive faster than the speed limit says it can. And this is over in the United States, and having straight roads can be a problem because it actually also encourages drivers to drive fast as well, because the road's straight. And now it gets to straight, and yes, this is similar to like the Google map there. This is similar to this street here, and this is what I am trying to address though, because we know that if we don't change the if we're going to lower speed but we not change the street size, we're going to be getting the same point that people are driving faster than the speed limit says they can. And this is probably all I gotta say, and let's go to the next one here, and understanding the 85th understanding the 85th percentile speeds. Yeah, there we go, sometimes, and this is the diagram, and how to address current speeding, and now we're getting the reason why the police also are saying to me, we'll be delivering those to people's mailboxes and this is just on this road, and this is probably going to be why. And now let's go to the standard engineering process, and they say construct the speed safety is there excessive speeding? If there's no, then that's done. If there is, then they say either raise the posted speed limit, which that's not probably a good way to do it. Raise the posted speed limit or probably even lower it. The way New Zealand do try to, the way they set speed limit is probably not the good way to do it, it's probably the wrong way. And now we're going with the strong towns approach. Construct the speed safety. Is there excessive speed? If there's none, then done. If there is, which that is why, and yes, on this road, then change the street design. And yes, I agree, change the street design. And yep, because you know why that comes down to it? The psychology of driving. Yeah, it's the driver's psychology. And changing the street design, yep, narrowing the roads. If there's going to be on-street parking, it has to be like be paved and that, not with asphalt. And you know, with asphalt and that. And yeah, so and yeah, and making the street narrow, because man, let's go to like Roundtree Point. I want to get out of there. There we go. And let's go there, and there it is, Roundtree Point. And I'm gonna go right there. And we know that the road's pretty narrow there, and yeah, it is quite a narrow road. And you know what? And this is probably a safer road, and people and there's actually on-street parking over there. See, there's on-street parking there, and this is an older map. And the road is narrow, and they actually, cause yeah, and also around here they actually lower the speed limit from 50 down to 40. Yeah, cause it's just, cause well, on those narrow roads you actually do drive slower when the road's narrow. When the lane's narrow, you actually do drive slow because it is a psychology of driving. It actually gets the mind to sort of worry about what's really around them. Yeah, cause and there's trees, and that's what, and yeah, and that's yeah, cause. And that's what's actually, because these things, yeah, and this is what actually will cause and encourage the drivers in the car to drive slow, and also it makes the road safer. And there's on-street parking there for people to park on there, and yeah, and people, that's the solution, having narrow roads. And there we go, and that's the solution here, and that's in Roundtree Point in New Zealand. And well, just hang on for the moment. Hello? Yeah. May? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I might come around just around afternoon.
Need them done soon, because otherwise they can't transfer the money for the house.
Okay.
Is that alright?
Yeah, so
I'll give you $20 for your fuel or whatever.
yeah, so probably around just before lunch.
Yeah, okay mate.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now hang on, where are we going to be? We're at Nangapie at the moment.
Yes.
Hang on, where are we going to be, Lenny? Hey? At Springfield.
Springfield.
Up at Mums.
Nan's place, yeah.
Tell us when you go in there and we'll try and meet you there, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, man.
See you there.
Alright, lunchtime?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, mate. I'll see you then.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye. Well. Yep, people, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. I know my dad called me as well. He just rang me. But any further ado, let's get back to what I was doing. And yes. And that's round 1 point. And we know that the maps haven't been updated yet. So this is quite an old map. So. And now we are getting to the understanding an 85th percentile. And yes. What is the 85th percentile? The 85th percentile speed is the speed at or below which 80% drivers will operate with open road and favourable conditions. The additional underline of the 85th percentile speed which most drivers will operate their vehicles at the speed which perceived to be safe. Speed limit is set above or below the 85th percentile will create unsafe conditions due to the speed differential for as some drivers will adhere to strictly to the law. Will drive at a naturally introduced speed. And yep. And yes, that's one thing with the Auckland transportation and or New Zealand Transport and with the New Zealand Transport Agency or the AA, which they haven't really looked at yet, or they probably have, but they haven't been saying in the videos yet. And I am going to get to. Well, one thing I actually hadn't talked about yet, the road designs, and which I am going to get to this video, and there we go. And these are the road designs from this gaming channel. City Skylines, people. I'm not talking about City Skylines. I'm going to do that because it does speak of facts, though, and you got those. Let's hear what he's got to say first.
Number 2 is use proper road hierarchy and lane mathematics. So very simply, what do we mean by road hierarchy? Well, I've just laid some roads here to have a look at. So we've got our highway roads at the top, going in each direction, of course, and that would be your main arterial roads that you would have going through your city. They would be the fastest road, they would carry the most traffic. Then you have your collectors. These can be of various sizes. The larger sort of collector roads that we have in the game, the 6-lane road, they can also be used as an arterial as well from time to time. But if we think of these as collectors, I tend to use the 4-lane roads as collectors. They will collect, you could say, the cars, the traffic from the arterial road and bring it through to our next set of roads, which is your local streets. And your local streets, the smaller 2-lane roads, come in all different shapes and sizes, with trees, without, with bike lanes, all the rest of those ones. But these are the ones where people live. These are the ones where people drive on, have their houses on, maybe go.
Yeah, the road hierarchy is there, and yeah. Yes. And these are the oh, let's go back there. And yes, there are, and normally with arterials, and these really where the speed limit to be like 50 miles an hour and 80 kilometers or even more. These will be made for the arterials, and with the collector roads, and normally speed limits on those roads would be either from 40 up to 80 kilometers an hour on those with collector roads. There, yeah, because collector roads just about. It's like getting from, it's the time for tractors from getting traffic from the arterials, from the collectors all the way to the local streets and there where people, because we know that local streets are really not a thoroughfare, it's a destination. And the one thing we actually do that's a road that's trying to be all those things is what we call then a straw, yeah, a straw, people. A straw is a type of thoroughfare that crosses between a street and a road. Reportedly, the term was first coined by American civil engineering and urban planner Charles in 2011 as about the paved traffic structures in the United States. Yeah, people are not always that great with words, to bear with me. According to the mantra, a straw is a bare combination of two types of circular pathway. It is a path street, which is described as a complex society where life happens, where life in the city happens, where pedestrians, car, boarding close to sidewalks for easy accessibility with many entrances and exit to from the streets, and with spaces temporary for parking and delivery vehicles, and a road and a pathway which is described as a high-speed connection between two places with wide roads, limited entrance and exits, and which are generally straight and have gentle curves, yeah, because that's what a road is, and yeah, straw, and we do have those in New Zealand, and I am going to go and find a straw in New Zealand, and of course we have it like over in Whangarei, and there's an example there. And we're going to be looking and to look at that, people look at that, we see so many driveway, and we see like a vehicle turning onto the road there, into the street, and he must have came off on this road, because yes, in New Zealand we do drive on the street, and this is got so many driveways, and this is what makes the road quite pretty dangerous, because it creates so many conflict points. And we know that here in New Zealand, this is a straw. It's like we got a road and a street that's trying to be one thing at once, and this is more like an arterial road. And this is, yeah, this is more like an arterial road, and we have like houses, driveways, access points. Man, this is what makes the road pretty dangerous. If you're trying to really make roads safer here in New Zealand, this is the wrong way to do it. Is have driveways there, and the solution to that is to remove those driveways. Remove it, and if there's gonna be any driveway, it should be a one-way in. Because yeah, if it's gonna be a road, access points are limited, and it won't be leading into houses and people's property and that, because yeah, this road is absolutely a straw. And man, if people like go and stay at this hotel, and I'll say, and I was staying over here, but I want to go up north, but I had to wait for all those traffic there, man. And it just creates on, yeah. And there's also a traffic light there as well. And if there's like at least down to a street, and they can like travel around there, and man, that would be safer. And like if I was like living on this property, and I want to like say my work's like one and like up north there or in the town center, I had to wait for all that traffic there, or I can just turn left. Means they are competing with traffic. Noisy, loud, and it's unsafe, ugly, and we know that the roads and the path is pretty narrow, and this is designing a road like this, man, you're designing disaster, because all the vehicles. Yeah, well, let's get on from that now, and let's move on to the 85th percentile. And now, I am gonna be starting from about 2 minutes 26 seconds.
And so for calculating,
yeah, the 85th percentile, man, and yes, I'm talking about that, And yes, that's over in the States. 65 miles an hour, which is about 104 kilometers an hour. And let's get back to it.
The 85th percentile speed, you first need to collect your data. And you can do this with either radar or tubes. If you're using tubes, you want to use a two-tube setup in order to collect your speeds. If you're using radar, you want to be out in the field and only collecting the first car in a platoon of cars to ensure that you're collecting free flow speeds of the vehicles. Some people prefer to cover speed limit signs to avoid influencing drivers, or you can pick a spot on the roadway where you know there won't be any distractions or influences that you do not want. You also want to collect a large enough sample size to get meaningful data, so at least 100 vehicles in this case. And once you collect your data, then you're going to want to plot the speeds on an XY scatter plot. And your x-axis is going to be the speed, and your y-axis is going to be the percent of vehicles traveling at or below the corresponding speed.
And I'm going to skip that part there, and I'm going to go to about 5 minutes in, 5 minutes, 20 minutes in. I'm going to skip to the graph.
Then created our XY graph with our speed versus our percent of vehicles traveling at or below each speed. Here's what our graph looked like. As you can see, we still have our low sloping beginning area, our steep sloping center, and then finishing off with our low sloping end. It resembles the graph from earlier, but as it's real roadway data, there's a little bit more variation, as you kind of can see these hiccups and bumps in the middle. What we then did was, by taking our 85th percentile line on our y-axis, we projected a horizontal line to intersect our speed data. From this point, we dropped vertical lines down to intersect our x-axis. And this shows us our corresponding 85th percentile speeds for our directions. So in this example, our northbound and southbound lanes are traveling between 62 and 63 miles per hour.
And which is that is in kilometers per hour, this is actually 100 kilometers an hour.
And as the road is currently a 55 mile an hour road, and we have data showing that in both the north and southbound direction, it's between 62 and 63 miles per hour, a 60 mile per hour speed limit would be reasonable. Engineering judgment and other external factors should be included in this decision. Clear space, shoulder width, road condition, ADT, etc. should all be looked at. If you would like to know more about the 85th percentile speed, you can visit our Traffic Corner Tuesday YouTube page.
Yeah, and that's all I got here, and yeah, and that's the 85th percentile, and yes, people, and this is why 2.5 reveals why the key to starting traffic is street designs, not speed limits, and yeah. If you really want, and the New Zealand Transport Agency, the Auckland Transport, and the A8, they should be looking at this. Street design. Yeah, and this is the street here. Both are 20 mile zones, which is about 32 kilometers an hour. But only one like that is the sign like it, and yeah. We've got a nice narrow street and look like they got on-street parking. There's a misnomer. Yeah, there's a wrong design because the road's wide. Yeah, well, 20 miles per hour, which is 32 kilometers an hour, and this is the speed there, and hit by a vehicle is going like 20 miles an hour, which is 32 kilometers per hour. About 9 out of 10 pedestrians will survive. Hit by a vehicle that's going about 30 miles an hour, which is probably like about 49 kilometers an hour. Only about half will survive, and vehicle going like about 40 miles per hour, which is probably about at least 65 kilometers per hour. Only 1 out of 10 will survive, means you only have 1 chance of a chance of surviving it. So I'll say, people, it does come down to road design, and yes, and there's a video for not for here, not just for bikes, here, not just bikes, and yes, he does cover some good key points for either streets and roads, and why street designs are important. And yes, then we got the arterial roads. These are for like high-speed vehicles, collector roads. It's just about, it's a road that's about carrying traffic between arterial roads and local roads, and speeds will be low. Yeah, speeds will be low, but it'll be either from 40 kilometers an hour up to 80 kilometers an hour, and local roads, they'll be below, yeah, speeds will be below 40 kilometers an hour. Yeah, below, 40 kilometers below, 40 kilometers an hour or below. Yeah, I think it's just what Biffin was talking about on his video there, and and people, and they should be looking at those, using the correct road hierarchy. And one thing, don't try to make them to be both roads and streets, because man, you want streets to be like more about destinations, and roads are more like a thoroughfare. It's just like from getting from point A to point B. Well, people, I hope you got something out of this video though, and I'll say, people, we can make our roads safer, especially here in New Zealand. We should be taking ideas from what other countries had tried, and if they had succeed, we should adopt it. But if it has really failed, we should probably reconsider it, or probably even reject the design, because man, the idea of a stroke is absolute failure. It fails of like being a street, also fails as a road as well, and we do have those in New Zealand. And like here, because you got houses there, and this is State Highway 1, and this is actually a stroke here in New Zealand. And we must say no to strokes, because they are dangerous. And I think this is all I gotta say for now, people. And I hope you got something out of this video. I'll say, people, this is Matthew Miller, the Millennial Kiwi, signing off, over and out. I'll say, people, let's talk to each other, let's share ideas, and let's build great things that's going to do humanity well.